So at the moment, the AI you're hearing about is humans sitting down and creating an architecture for a computer system and then running that architecture on data and then on cases where they plan out how that system's organized. And what they're trying to do is make a system that's as capable of the human brain. But when we look at the actual human brain, it's very complicated and has all these different parts working in different ways. We don't fully understand it, but we can see that it actually is a general artificial intelligence. That is, our human brains are capable of doing the wide range of things that we actually do. So another approach to artificial intelligence, i.e. machines that are as smart as humans, is simply to make a model of an individual human brain. That is, you take an actual brain and you scan and you see where all the cells are, of what type, connected to what. And then you have good enough computer models about how each cell takes input signals, changes internal states, and sends output signals. And if you have good enough models for all the different kinds of cells in the brain, and you have a good enough scan of a brain to tell you which kind of cells are where, then you can make a computer model of the whole thing. And that computer model of the whole thing, if it's good enough, would have roughly the same input-output behavior. That is, you could hook it up with artificial eyes, ears, hands, and mouth. And then you could tell it to do something, and it might do something just like the original person would do in that same situation. So this is a path that should eventually be possible to lead to human-level artificial intelligence. And so then the question is, how fast will this happen? And, compared to especially the other approaches to automating tasks. So this brain emulation thing may take another century, but then again, making the other kinds of AIs as good as humans across a wide range of tasks, that may also take century. So we can't really tell which one will go faster. But the thing we can tell is that the brain emulation kinds of artificial intelligence are much more understandable, relatable, and perhaps, ones we approve of more. So the brain emulation, if we did a brain emulation of you, then when we turned it on, it would remember having been you just before we scanned you. And then you'll have to convince it that it's now a brain emulation. It will just assume it's still you. And it will have all the same feelings and inclinations and memories and skills. And so from its point of view, it is you. Now you can decide it isn't you, but it thinks it's you. It'll tell you it's you. It'll be very insistent on that. It'll be sure. Eventually you'll have to convince it that it is in fact a brain emulation, but we understand how these things work, that in the sense that we can put these things together in a society and we can predict a lot about how that society goes because we know a lot about how humans go in our society today. So they will have some important differences that allow them to do some things we can't do, but to a first approximation, they're basically us. And so if you're worried about an alien future that isn't like us and the things that we value disappearing, well, you should be less worried about that here because, hey, they are pretty close to you. On the one hand, you could think of a particular brain emulation as being you personally, and you might hope yourself to come back as a brain emulation. But setting that aside, we could just think our descendants, if they were brain emulations, would just be a lot like us. And so whatever we were valuing in ourselves and afraid might be lost by other kinds of AI, well, this is less lost here. Now, my book, The Age of M, Work, Love, and Life When Robots Rule the Earth, goes through in great detail what this world would be like. And it is substantially different than your world and life now. So I think this is one of the things you should just most expect. When we look in the past at all the huge changes that have happened coming up to here, that just sets the expectation that you got to expect the future will also be pretty different in some big important ways. That you just can't expect the world you live in to stay pretty much like this world indefinitely. That's just not very reasonable given how much change has happened. So you got to suck up and expect some substantial change.